What's up everybody, this is Danny, and today I'm going to bring you my top 5 smartphone picks for 2014, and I had to leave a few of them out. There were so many good ones this year, but I had to leave some out, and your list may vary, and these are in no particular order. These are just the ones that I use the most in 2014, so let's not hesitate, get right into it, and the first one is the Apple iPhone 6 Plus. The 6 Plus is the larger out of the two iPhones that were released this year, and I naturally gravitated towards it because it does have some differences from the iPhone 6. And one of the larger differences is the new 1080p display. It's got a higher resolution display than the iPhone 6, and I think this is one of the best 1080p displays that I have seen this year. So that's definitely a welcome change to the iPhone 6 Plus, and it brings the new design over as well. You can see that the rounded design is here, the all metal back is here as well, and this larger footprint, it's a little bit big in the hand, but it does have some major advantages because it's finally got a larger battery, a 2915 milliamp battery, and it lasts all day long, so that's a fantastic thing to have. And also the back has an 8 megapixel camera, but it has optical image stabilization built in, which the iPhone 6 does not, and it helps a lot with the crisp images and also steady video. The iPhone 6 Plus was my longest running daily driver in 2014 for many reasons, but for these particular reasons, for its fast, consistent experience, its great 8 megapixel camera, and also its phenomenal battery life. I was able to enjoy multimedia, check up on my social networks, and go through an entire day and never been able to kill this battery. Probably the best battery that I've tested in 2014, so for those reasons, the Apple iPhone 6 Plus makes it to the top 5 smartphones of 2014. The next phone we're going to talk about is the Samsung Galaxy Note 4, and this is the 4th generation of the Note line, and they brought many improvements to it this year, easily making it the best Note ever. And the build quality on Samsung devices is always something that I always complained about, but this year they definitely stepped up their game and they used a lot of metal. Look at that metal frame on the outside, making it nice and rigid. It's got the nice chamfered edges as well, and they stepped it up to make it look more classy. They took the stitching off of the back, they improved the S Pen, and it just all around feels so solid. It's one of the best built devices of this year. Samsung is known for their displays, so this display does not disappoint whatsoever. It's a 5.7-inch Quad HD Super AMOLED display, and let me just tell you, hands down, it is the best mobile display that I've seen this year. Amazing clarity and amazing vibrancy. Great display, and of course you have a large battery in the back that is replaceable, also with an SD card, so that is great for road warriors and productivity guys. So the power of this is also no slouch. It has the Snapdragon 805 processor with 3 gigabytes of RAM, the Adreno 420 GPU, so it's an absolute powerhouse. TouchWiz got a little bit better this year, but I think that largely has to do with the fast chip that's inside the Snapdragon 805 quad-core with 3 gigabytes of RAM. It did a great job of keeping the UI experience nice and fluid and nice and fast in my time of testing this year. And the pen, don't really use it that much in my experience, but for people that use the Note 4 for productivity, scrapbooking, and just the regular creative person, I think they would actually enjoy all of the pen features that are on the Note 4 this year. Lots of improvements. One of the notable things for me this year is the 16 megapixel camera that's on the back with optical image stabilization. I think this is the best camera of an Android device in 2014. It's got really great optical image stabilization. It's got support for 4K video, which is fantastic by the way. Nice and crisp video from it, and the UI is very similar to what you've seen before. So for all of these reasons, I think that this is the best Android smartphone of 2014. And it makes it to my top 5 smartphones of 2014. The third phone on my list is the LG G3. Now this is the first flagship to come out from a major manufacturer this year, and it actually set the trend for a lot of the specs that came later with the other flagship devices. It carried over that unique rear button design that some people like and some people don't like, but I actually enjoyed it. And it also has an industry first this year right next to the 13 megapixel camera with optical image stabilization, and that is laser focus. And I found that the laser focus to be very consistent. It is very fast and spot on, and it also created some nice images with support for 4K video. Besides the specs, I think the LG G3 should get the nomination for the best design device of 2014. Not the best built, but the best design, because it has a large 5.5-inch display on the front, but look at how thin those bezels are. Those bezels are razor thin, and the front is just dominated by the Quad HD display, and it makes it one of the most manageable flagships of this year. And I think a lot of 5.5-inch devices came out that seemed to be the sweet spot, but this definitely was the most manageable in the hand. One of my large complaints about the LG G2 was its software skin experience. It was so heavy, it was really hard to use, but I commend LG because they did a good job of simplifying the UI. They made it much more usable, and I think it was a lot more fluid. Now, it's still a heavy skin, but it's nowhere near as bad as the G2 was, so they're moving in the right direction. Now, the Snapdragon 801 processor powered the original version of this phone, so most carrier versions and most versions that people are using have the Snapdragon 801 processor because it was so early in the year. But this version is the LTE-A model, which has the Snapdragon 805 with 3 GB of RAM and the Adreno 420 GPU, which I think helped a lot with performance. So overall, I think the LG G3 was a fantastic phone, and I'm looking forward to the LG G4 this year, and has a removable backplate with a 3000 milliamp battery, which had decent battery life and SD card expansion. So for those reasons, the LG G3 made it to my top 5 smartphones of 2014. The next phone we're going to talk about is probably the most controversial phone of 2014, and that is the OnePlus One. And you had to have an invite system to buy it, and a lot of people are wondering why they just couldn't buy this phone. And the reason is because they set out to make a flagship killer. They took a phone with many flagship internals and they set this thing loose for $299. That is super cheap. This puts it into the budget category, but it's really not a budget phone. It featured a Snapdragon 801 quad-core processor with 3 GB of RAM, and it also had a 13 megapixel camera on the back with dual LED flash and a large 3100 milliamp battery, which lasted all day. It was one of the best batteries also that I've tested this year, and you will not be disappointed with the battery life on the OnePlus One. This phone came fully unlocked with GSM support and a lot of LTE bands, and also came with a premium, fantastic 1080p display with great contrast, great viewing angles, and also great color. So they did not skimp at all when it came to the hardware. So that's why it was so surprising that they released it for such a small price. What took this phone to the next level is the software. It ran CyanogenMod 11S, and it was the only phone to ship with that software this year, and I think that made the biggest difference when it came to that. It was hardware and software mixed together to make a great experience. It has themes, it has a lot of customization options. I got a ton of updates this year to make the system a lot better, and there was improvements all across the board. So I commend OnePlus and Cyanogen for doing such a great job when it came to the software, and that's what kept this thing in my pocket longer in 2014. While the 13 megapixel camera was not the best out there, it did have a few tricks up its sleeve. It had some awesome software here, and it also has support for 4K video recording, but also it has support for 24 frames per second 4K DCI, which you can check that sample out if you want to. I made a full video on that, and no other phone has had that this year. It also brought one of the most interesting textures to the smartphone when it came to build quality, and that is the sandstone black. It just feels so weird in the hand. It's nice and grippy, but feels premium. I don't know, some people like it, some people don't, but I think it was very, very unique. So no matter the controversy, I thought the OnePlus One was one of the best smartphones in 2014, so looking forward to the OnePlus 2. The last smartphone I'm going to be looking at this year is the Nexus 6, and this one crept right in at the end of the year, just like the Nexus does every year, and this year it's built by Motorola. Last year it was built by LG. and this one has a large footprint, and it resembles the Moto 2014 a lot. It has the nice metal band that's around the outside, the curved design on the back, which allows for a large battery, and it also has the best internals that the Nexus has ever seen. It comes with a Snapdragon 805 processor, 3GB of RAM, the Adreno 420 GPU, and it came completely unlocked and also came on carriers as well. And unlike the Moto X 2014, it actually came with dual stereo speakers on the front, which is great for multimedia. What also helps the multimedia experience is its 5.96-inch AMOLED display that is at Quad HD resolution, and it gives you nice vibrant colors. Now, it's not the best Quad HD display that I've seen on the market like the Galaxy Note 4, but it definitely does its job. The Nexus line surprised a lot of people this year because this phone came in at a whopping $649 for the 32GB model. Now you can get it a little bit cheaper, subsidized when you get it on a carrier, but this is arguably the most powerful Nexus device, and they set it out to be a flagship device, and it is. People may be wondering why I put the Nexus 6 as one of the best smartphones of 2014, because the launch was kind of mishapped. There was some things wrong with it. The battery life isn't the greatest, and overall the hardware isn't also the greatest, but the experience of Android 5.0 Lollipop in its stock form is probably the best mobile experience that I have experienced this year. And Lollipop has many changes, and I think it is my favorite mobile OS of the year, and I think a lot of people will not argue with that. The changes are fantastic. I think that material design is nice and clean. I love the way that it was overhauled. I think that Android 5.0 makes Android look so fresh and so clean, and it's just a familiar experience, but just better all around. It has so many new features, and I love the way it runs. Now, on the Nexus 6, it does run a little bit laggy, which is weird. I think a lot of people are blaming it on the encryption, but overall, I'm pretty sure that software experiences will be better once they push out some more updates to the Nexus. And that's the reason why that I added this onto the best smartphones of 2014, because I think this phone will carry you well into 2015 without any problems, because Google will update the software experience on this phone. Some may argue that it's too big for them, so they're going to go towards the Nexus 5. But it does have a 13 megapixel camera with optical image stabilization. The focus is very fast, the shutter is very fast, but it does not produce the best images as of the timing of this video. So hopefully they'll also put out a software update for this camera to make it a little bit better. I'm excited to see what Google's going to do with Android 5.0 and with the Nexus 6, so this is pretty much your only choice when it comes to you wanting these updates very fast and directly from Google. So that rounds up my top 5 smartphones of 2014. There were some honorable mentions, of course. The HTC One M8 was fantastic, but I had to keep this video fairly short. So let me know what you think about the top 5 smartphones of 2014. And if you have not subscribed to the channel, make sure you do, and give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this content, and I will see you guys in the next video.